Introducing Royal Caribbean's newest ship, Icon of the Seas, the ultimate family vacation. The ultimate 6 slides, 8 neighborhoods, 0 compromise vacation. The ultimate never done that, can't wait to do it vacation. The ultimate chillin' by a different pool every day of the week vacation. This is the Icon of Vacations. Icon of the Seas, arriving in 2024. Book today. Come seek the Royal Caribbean. Ships Registry, Bahamas.
Hockey fans, are you ready to brave the wild? With me, your host, Paladino Joey, or Joey Awajan. Brave the Wild is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, PodMN, Spotify, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, Audible, Stitcher, Double Twist. Thank you once and always for downloading and listening, and it is a great pleasure to have you joining me once again today. The Minnesota Wild enter the postseason. We will preview the NHL postseason. Minnesota Wild will face off against the Vegas Golden Knights Sunday afternoon. That's right. It was the matchup we all kind of had a feeling was going to happen the whole year. And then it's like, okay, no, it's going to be Colorado, I guess. Colorado's going to take that because Vegas was going to win the division. Oh, my God, we might actually have home ice over Colorado in the first round. No, scratch that. St. Louis kicked our ass like 3 or 4 games in a row or something like that. That's what it felt like. But yeah, it just wasn't good, especially the last 2 games. But, Wild finished in 3rd place with a very strong record. And momentum's not looking so hot, but still, it is what it is. You had to kind of get out of there without getting hurt, playing Parise instead of guys like Kaprizov and Fiala, of course. Yeah, it's just funny, though, Parise, what he was and how much he's still getting paid. And not that long ago, what he was, and it's just he's the guy in there to prevent other guys from getting hurt. Isn't that the darndest thing you ever saw? But yeah, that's kind of how the tune-up was. We're not going to really review the game since the last episode. Apologize, it's been a while. I could have done one last weekend. I actually had more time off last weekend to do it, but I was like, you know what? Screw it. These games are kind of like wrapping things up. And then we can get on to postseason conversation against the the Vegas Golden Knights, I guess. So that's kind of how things set up there. Overall, a decent series, and we only played Vegas 8 times this year. It was a entertaining matchup to say the least, and all that. Very epic, very entertaining matchup between these clubs. Sunday afternoon, we opened things up, NBC and all that. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. Got to think this is going to be a 6 or 7 game series, win or lose. It's going to be a 6 or 7 game series. I'd be shocked if this was 5 or less, one way or another. It's going to be an awesome series. Awesome. Both teams have good goalies. Obviously, you have good goaltending. The Minnesota Wild going into this series, though, I can't say I'm as confident in the goaltending as I was, a couple of weeks back, a couple of months back. Obviously, a couple of months, but a couple of weeks back. A couple of months ago, I was like, ooh, this is great. Cam Talbot, did we play him too much? Did he get worn out? Or is he just kind of coming back to the means, so to speak? I don't know. And Kakkonen, was he underplayed? A lot of people, he gets tired. Pat Micheletti made one of the worst statements I've ever heard him make. Pat Micheletti's usually pretty good. I think he made a little error there. Luckily, Brandon Molesky kind of was like, actually, it's the other way around. It was kind of like this.
No, lad. I'm afraid it's the other way around.
Yeah, it's the other way around. Kakkonen wasn't playing enough. Goaltenders that come back after long layoffs usually aren't real good. Even Talbot, when he came back from his injury, he gave up 5 goals to the Arizona Coyotes, a team we pretty much owned all season. So, speaking of giving up 5 goals and stuff, that's kind of what's been a problem in the last several games. 5 goals given up against the Knights. The second last time we played them in an absolutely epic game. Felt like Game 7 of the Cup Finals or Game 7 of the Western Conference Finals or the first round or second, just a playoff series. And then an epic 3-2 loss. Very good matchup overall. In the 2, luckily the Wild swept Anaheim and then got swept by St. Louis. There's one team in this division that I fear most. And I mean, there's one team. We talked about Colorado. We talked about Vegas. And you talk about Minnesota and St. Louis. There's one team I fear the most in a playoff series for the Minnesota Wild. That's the St. Louis Blues. Yeah, the team with 63 points. The team with 12 less points than the Minnesota Wild. I fear the St. Louis Blues a lot more than I fear Vegas and Colorado. And I fear Vegas and Colorado. Oh, yeah. And I kind of got a feeling the worm is turning a bit with Vegas. A lot of us are like, oh, we've owned Vegas. We've dominated them. And then let's talk about how the Minnesota Wild have been, we've never like really lost to Vegas. They like say 3-0-1 or whatever, something like that. But overtime losses count in as a loss in the playoffs. There's no overtime loss. You don't get a point in the postseason. A loss is a loss. So that's actually a loss. You've been beaten. So let's not get silly here. Obviously, overtime losses are still losses, especially in the postseason. Tell that to the Columbus Blue Jackets last year in Game 1 against Tampa Bay, where that was a historic moment for the Tampa Bay Lightning, where Columbus could have owned them back-to-back years. It would have effed up everything. That triple overtime game where Tampa Bay finally scored, and then they took control of that series, and things kind of changed after that for Tampa. They weren't exactly playoff chokes anymore, were they? Sure, they lost Game 1 to Dallas, but then after that, well, who won the Stanley Cup? It was Tampa. One amazing stat you could think about, the Minnesota Wild have the same point total as the Tampa Bay Lightning. Very impressive, 75. Colorado officially wins the President's Trophy, even though they have the same point total as the Vegas Golden Knights. But the tiebreaker goes to the Colorado Avalanche. Congratulations on the President's Trophy. And, well, they might wind up like a lot of President's Trophy teams, losing in the first round because the St. Louis Blues are not going to be an easy out at all. That's going to go 6 or 7, but we'll talk about that in the second segment. As I'm figuring we're going to preview Vegas and Minnesota. I'm getting ahead of myself. Vegas and Minnesota, just too excited to talk about everything. It's going to be all about Vegas and Minnesota here in segment number 1. And, of course, getting caught up in some transactions and such. And then it'll be all wall-to-wall postseason predictions and such in segment number 2. I don't anticipate that segment being super long. In fact, I almost could just keep this as a 2-segment show. That's probably a better idea. I've been debating back and forth. I'm kind of weird that way, where I kind of change my mind on the fly. Segment number 2 or 3, we'll say. We'll just say segment 2, I think, is going to be the fan interaction segment. Tom Hayen makes his return. Lightning round. Derek Velska. Awesome. I am just really pumped about the fan interaction segment. It is freaking cool. We're going to talk about Parise and such going into the postseason. The odds of Zach Parise playing in this series are not real high because it's just kind of is what it is. He's out of the lineup now. Sad to think about Luke Johnson on the left wing, though. I don't know. This can't be right, can it? No, I can't imagine. I don't know. But the most recent situation has had Eck, Foligno, and Greenway. No, this is wrong. This is just the last game. So that's not going to be the lines. I don't know why they're showing that. I wish they didn't. No, that obviously will be the line. That will be that line. But, of course, Parise's not going to be with Johansson and Hartman. Very unlikely. Because you're talking about Fiala and and such. Obviously, Rask and Zuccarello are going to be with Kirill Kaprizov. Bonino is paired up very nicely on that fourth line with Sturm. There was Parise with him at times. That could be the case. Otherwise, Bukestad, the bugler, will be on the right side. Bonino on the left with Sturm at center. That's most likely going to be your fourth line. You're not going to see Rao and Johnson. They're going to be the taxi men along with Zach Parise. Can't even imagine that. It's kind of a scary thought. Johansson, I got to think Marcus Johansson with his skating ability and his history, obviously he's got a chance to be pretty valuable in this postseason, despite the fact his numbers were not all that exciting, not all that sexy. Going into the previous, going into, earlier in the regular season, not all that sexy numbers, only 14 points in 36 games. Obviously was hurt for a while and also had just a horrendous start to the season. Carson Soucy, very amazing statistics in the season when it comes to the plus 22 on the air. The plus minus in the NHL it's more important, I think, than the plus minus in the NBA. It still counts for something in the NBA, but a plus minus in the NHL is really good. Obviously, it shows Carson Soucy really held his own defensively. It still wound up with 17 points. Hopefully, this is not his final season in Minnesota as he heads off to the Seattle Kraken. We're a little bit light on the left side, as I've talked about in the past. When you look at the prospects and such, will the Wild trade Dumba in the offseason? I have no idea. The chances of Parise returning are extremely slim. Last night in the season finale, you got to see Marcus Foligno wearing the alternate captain A on his chest, last night. Get used to that, because I do think Zach Parise does not return, and that Foligno will be donning the A on his chest next season, which will be a rightful place for that. Zach Parise, obviously, it is what it is. What an amazing career. Obviously, he had that 33-goal season a few years back. Oh, it's been a while now. That was the year we actually beat St. Louis in the first round. The Wild were a better team than St. Louis, I thought, in a lot of ways that year, but mostly because Dubnyk was hot and was still a big thing. And Jake Allen was just, he was a younger guy who was up and down. It was kind of a strange situation there. Kirill Kaprizov, obviously an amazing season, multi-goals, so many times this year, won up with 27 points. I got to think he's got to get that Calder Trophy, no doubt about it. Robertson is just not going to happen, I don't think. I think Kirill Kaprizov has got to get the Calder this year. Kevin Fiala finished with 40 points in 50 games. Very, very strong performance for him. Zuccarello's 35 and 42. Obviously had some hot and cold moments, but when he's hot, he's hot. Spectacular passer, but he can also score. Joel Eriksson Ek is a 20-plus goal scorer in this league now, and he did play all 56 games. Well done, young man. 30 points. Getting closer and closer to those AHL numbers where he was literally a point-a-game player. What a great season. Brodin, obviously unbelievable in showing 9 bleeping goals. That's unreal. 9 goals for Brodin in the shortened season. Can definitely play on the power play and such. So these are important things as you head in the series against Vegas. Obviously, they're an extremely, extremely talented team. And, we've talked about them a million times throughout the season because we played 8 times. We may play 7 more times. So at the end of the year, we may have played the Vegas Golden Knights 15 times. If this goes to 7 games. And I kind of have a feeling it could. I have a feeling this could go to 7 games. I don't know why this matchup thing isn't loading. There we go. Again, a Sunday afternoon game in T-Mobile Arena. Andrew Hammond, why are they even talking about his injury? The good news, Marco Ross, he's been cleared for like full workouts and such, so extremely exciting. I think he is absolutely a guy you don't want to look to trade. As again, kind of conversation about him with Jack Eichel of the Buffalo Sabres, of course. The way Bill Guerin described it, how he's talking about we want to build through the draft. If the right thing comes up, we'll make the move. If it makes our team better, this and that. Would Jack Eichel make the Wild better? Probably. I got to think. But do you want to give up the farm? Do you want to give up Boldy and Fiala? Or even Rossi and Fiala? Or Rossi and Boldy? I don't. And maybe multiple draft picks and Dumba? I can part with Dumba. Because you have Brendan Menell, who was extremely frustrated that he wasn't called up to the NHL, but just it's too full at the right shot side, the right side of the defense. And you have, again, Kalen Addison, who you could argue is actually ahead of him. So, I mean, moving Dumba is not going to make me upset. It's not. It's one of those things that's just bound to happen at some point. But Rossi, Boldy, or Fiala, I'm not in a huge rush to do that. At the end of the day, we'll see what happens with Alec Martinez. Undisclosed injury as of Feb 10. Peyton Krebs, face, left game. That sucks on the 8th. And Max Pacioretty is an undisclosed injury as of May the 1st. So he's missed a significant amount of time. Max Pacioretty. The talk of him is they're not really sure if he's going to be back or not right away here for the postseason. Led the team in goals, believe it or not. Stone led in assists. Stone, there is a similarity between Mark Stone and Kirill Kaprizov. When a lot of people talk about Kirill Kaprizov being similar to Patrick Kane, I see similarities to Mark Stone. Because you talk about playmaking, how centers can be, there's playmaking centers, there's guys that make plays for other people. And then you have, because they're so talented. And then you obviously, and then you have wings that are so bleeping talented, you almost don't need a center on the line, like a good center. You're going to have a center there. It's bound to happen. But they're so talented at making plays, one way or another, scoring goals and setting up other players, that they're kind of like the center anyway, even though they're not a center. They're just that good from the wing. And again, you could say that about Matt Zuccarello as well. Kaprizov and Mark Stone are kind of similar that way in my mind, and they're also pretty good defensive players as well. Kirill Kaprizov plays all over the place, man. I mean, the way he poke Shaq, but I mean, it's more of a, he just comes up on a guy, challenges players, and knocks the puck out of them. He'll stuff them as they try to move the puck around. He has just been unbelievable. Obviously, he's just a tireless player, Kirill Kaprizov, and I see similarities with Mark Stone. Obviously, guys that can get anywhere from 60 to 80 points and again set other players up. But Kirill Kaprizov's goal-scoring ability is spectacular. but his playmaking ability is also spectacular. The goaltending matchup is going to be extremely interesting. No more swords in the back here with Marc-Andre Fleury. He's not getting stabbed in the back at this moment. He's probably going to be the main guy. He's back to being a spectacular Hall of Fame goalie. We'll see how he performs in the playoffs, though, because he's had seasons like this in the past. Took them all the way to the Cup Finals, along with the rest of his teammates being damn good as well, back in the inaugural season for the Vegas Golden Knights. And then it just wasn't the same against a Washington team that was on a mission. That Washington team kind of reminded me of the Indianapolis Colts with Peyton Manning and Tony Dungy of 2006. They just reminded me of that, where it was a team with an extremely talented franchise guy, Peyton Manning, / obviously, again, Alex Ovechkin. And the team was just, they had so many failures in the playoffs, bumping into Pittsburgh in Washington's case, and in Indianapolis in football, obviously bumping into the Patriots. Bill Belichick forcing turnovers on Peyton Manning. How he was able to do that, we'll see. But obviously, it's debatable. But no, I love Bill Belichick, what he's accomplished in the league. I don't know why I'm getting into that, but I saw similarities there. But of course, Marc-Andre Fleury ran into that freight train, unfortunately. Sorry for going off there on a tangent about that. Cam Talbot, obviously, he's strong all year. He's going to be the main goalie. Kakkonen was underutilized down the stretch, and I think that hurt him. I think it did. And then he comes in, and now he's a little jittery, and he was rusty, and it's just, I don't know. And I just think that hurt Kaapo Kakkonen. I still think Kakkonen could be incredible if needed in the postseason, either in relief or just for whatever reason, or if Talbot suffers an injury of some sorts, which can happen. You get banged up and come back the next game. Talbot was strong most of the year. Just the last few weeks here, not so much. Definitely disappointing. Definitely kind of scary. You want to look at the month of May with Cam Talbot. 3.68 goals against average. 2 wins, 1 loss. This was in 4 games, so apparently he was obviously lifted in one of them. 3.68 goals against average. April, 12 games, 2.63. A bit lower than the other parts of the year. He's about 2.5. Pardon me. Save percentage of 87 in May for Talbot. It's just something to think about. And hopefully, again, Talbot maybe being overplayed can damage him this way. Kakkonen being underplayed can damage him the same way. Obviously, overusing and underusing goaltenders can put you in a disappointing situation. And it's happened before in the past. Obviously, Devin Dubnyk was overused way too much, regardless of how Bruce Boudreau or Mike Yeo felt about Darcy Kemper as the backup goalie. Now Boudreau only had Kemper for 1 year, but just saying. Regardless how either one of those coaches felt about Darcy Kemper, you got to get him in the net sometimes. Overusing Dubnyk was a mistake. Overusing Nicholas Backstrom was a mistake. Overusing Cam Talbot is a mistake. And I don't know. I was really disappointed that Dean Evason didn't get Kakkonen between the pipes a few more games than he did. That's one thing that kind of, it's just something, you raise a red flag, you say, hey, that's a little scary coming in here. Obviously, Vegas has a physical team that'll beat you up a bit. Not as physical as St. Louis, but they're more physical than Colorado, generally speaking, obviously, and they're capable of doing a lot of things. Of course, Mark Stone has really kicked the Wild's butt in the past. Even when the Wild win, he still kicked our butts. We'll see if Pacioretty's going to be healthy. Obviously, they have a very strong defensive core, just like the Wild. The good news is the Wild have beaten both goalies. We've beaten Marc-Andre Fleury multiple times. And we've hammered Robin Leonard, who actually you could argue is a guy that you want in the postseason if you're the Vegas Golden Knights, if you're going to make a playoff run. If Marc-Andre Fleury starts struggling like he tends to in the postseason at times, since his last couple of years in Pittsburgh, when Andy Murray took over and won a couple cups there, having the guy like Robin Leonard who could come in and really shut things down, stabilize things, could help the Vegas Golden Knights win the Stanley Cup this year. Their chances of winning it are pretty high. And I made a statement on Twitter earlier. I'll get to it in the fan interaction, but I'll make it here as well. The winner of this division, the team that comes out of this division, out of the 4 teams, because obviously we're going to play the winner. Whoever wins these series are going to play each other in the next round. Whoever wins this division is going to go to the Cup final. and has a legitimate shot at winning it. And that includes every single one of the 4 teams. Yes, the Minnesota Wild could go to the Stanley Cup Final this year if somehow we get past Vegas and then, the next round. Odds are we'll be playing Toronto in the next round, the way the seeding shows up. If it's Minnesota getting to the conference final, it's going to be Toronto. Hopefully they call it the Campbell Conference. Obviously it's going to go to one or the other. Prince of Wales would be like Tampa or something, or Carolina. Yeah, I mean, I think that's rightful. Obviously, you'd think Toronto would be East Coast, or not East Coast, but Eastern Conference, and Prince of Wales. But back in the day, Minnesota and Toronto were in the Campbell Conference. So that's something to think about. This series is going to be a fascinating series. I mean, we've had so many epic battles with these teams. It's been so fun. It's been so freaking fun. I wish they'd show the earlier schedule here. As now I was able to pull up the overall season series. It's been a entertaining overall series over the many years. Minnesota Wild have obviously a lot more wins than losses. Lost in a shootout back in 2018 to the Vegas Golden Knights. We finally lost one, right? It was the next year in a shootout, but still, that's a loss. I mean, that is a loss. So it is what it is. And then Vegas beat us in OT earlier this year in their building, I believe. But it's just kind of like, it is what it is. It's still a loss. It's still a freaking loss. It is what it is there. Let's just look at the past games this year, though. I mean, a 5-4 win for Vegas. So they actually won the... Nope, that was back in... that was this season. March the 1st, we played the Vegas Golden Knights. Lost, lost 5-1. No, 5-4, pardon me. And then Vegas actually beat the Wild 5-1. So it was a 2-0 lead for Vegas March the 3rd. It was actually kind of surprising. We got 1 point out of 4 there, out of a possible 4. And then you get Talbot with a shutout in a win there, because obviously he was the dominant goalie at home. Kakkonen was the dominant goalie away. The Wild then beat the Golden Knights 4-3 on March the 10th. A lot of games together there. April the 1st, April Fools, the Wild beat the Wild beat the Golden Knights in a shootout. And then, so the Wild had won 5 in a row actually over Vegas at this point. But as you keep going forward, April the 3rd, 2-1, very close battle. Then the 6-5 epic battle on April the 3rd. That was so fun. It was just such a back and forth battle, and the Wild ended up winning. Brodin tying it up, and the Wild ended up winning the game down the stretch. So beautiful. Man, that was a beautiful night. And then you lose in overtime to Vegas. Most recently on April the 5th. An entertaining, to say the least, season series, and I got to think it's going to be similar in the playoffs, but obviously more intensity, because, as Bill Guerin said, there's going to be much more intensity going forward. Obviously, so much to get to talking about this team in the playoffs, and then there's so many other things as well, like the Jack Eichel possibility. Put me in the no category, and of course we'll talk about that in the fan interaction segment. I'll probably get deeper into it because it will get brought up at some point. So we'll talk about that in the fan interaction segment as well. But call me as somebody who's probably not in a rush to do that. Obviously, the big contract situation, having to give up several prospects. Obviously, a warm body like Dumba, but prospects as well. I mean, Boldy, you could argue, is NHL already. He's not officially been called up yet at this moment as of Friday night when I'm recording this. So Boldy is not on the roster yet. We'll have to wait and see. A lot of people believe he will be called up, and that we didn't burn a year of a contract just to leave him in Iowa, and dominate in Iowa, by the way, which is what he's absolutely doing. We'll talk about that in a moment as well. It's going to be a busy couple of segments here with the postseason and such. What's going to happen in this series at the end of the day? I want to say Wild in 7. If it gets to 7, the Wild win the series. And obviously, I'd love to believe that we could do it in 6. Actually, knock them out at home in Xcel Energy Center with our fans in the building. Knock somebody out, just like we did with the St. Louis Blues years ago. It could wind up that way. It could, but I think it's going to be extremely difficult to win this series. It's not going to be as easy as people think. Vegas obviously played us pretty tough earlier in the year, and they played us tough at the end here as well. They probably should have won the game that we ended up winning 6-5. It was a 5-4 win for Vegas until things changed at the last moment. Beautiful, beautiful times there. But still, it was close. It was frickin' close. The way the Wild just kind of stole that one from Vegas down the stretch, but good for us. I want to backtrack and look at that a little bit because it was just such a beautiful, epic game. 3 goals in the third period for Minnesota. Again, Brodin actually had the winning goal. I apologize. It was Kaprizov with the tying goal. It's just an unbelievable play. Him and Fiala teaming up, and Fiala so strong down the stretch. Still wound up with 40 points in only 50 games. 20 goals, 20 assists. So cool to see Fiala even things up there, as he was mostly just goals for a while. And then Kaprizov was mostly assists early on in the season. But Stone, of course, did score against the Wild, as he always does. But just an entertaining back-and-forth battle. Cool. I mean, I can't wait for this series. It's going to be as entertaining a series as we've ever had in the postseason. And we've had some unbelievable series. The 7-game series versus Vancouver, multiple ones with Colorado. One interesting stat I should bring up before I move on into the actual rest of the playoffs and such, and look at the prospects super quick before that, is the Wild with home ice advantage in the playoffs has been terrible. It's really sad. You go back into history, and now this is when the Wild have had home ice advantage in a playoff series. So it's like, that's where I don't feel as bad, even though you'd think you want home ice advantage versus Vegas or Colorado. Unfortunately, it just wasn't meant to be. They're just too far ahead, and gosh, you'd have to have a President's Trophy to get it now, or at least be on the tied with the team that got it. It's pretty crazy to imagine. But it scares me to no end to think that the Wild are 3-12 in history in 3 series where the Wild have had home ice advantage in them. That is some bleep. Think about it, 3-12. Obviously, the 12 is losing every one of them. 4 games, right? Only 3 wins. Go back to the 2003 Western Conference Finals. Anaheim swept the Wild. Frick you, Sebastian Jaguar, with your frickin' shutouts. Screw you, you backup goalie who got hot at the right time. Okay, he was a little better than a backup, but you get the idea. More like a Talbot, kind of in starter, backup, starter. Hell yeah. And then we had home ice advantage versus Colorado when we actually won a division. We actually won a division one time. We actually won the division once, guys, back in 2006. Colorado beat us in 6 games. It was freaking bullcrap. Jose Theodore ended up beating the Wild. That was bullcrap, but yeah, I mean, he ended up being a really nice backup for us years later. And then, who can forget the 5-game beauty versus St. Louis? Yes, he put up 50-some shots on Jake Allen, but we still lost the freaking game because we just lost. It was depressing. We just lost. It was just, ugh. And then we lost in 5 freaking games. So there you go. Home ice advantage. And we're 0-3 in the series, 3-12 overall. It's the darndest thing. Protect home ice, you schmucks. Come on now. Protect home ice. And hopefully the Wild can do that. Obviously, you think of the North Stars back in the day when they were at home. It was like, hell yes. In 81 and 91 in both cases. Obviously, I was only 2 years old for the 81 final. But 91, I was, 12 years old. You're very much aware of what's going on in the world when you're 12 years old. You don't have knowledge of stocks. Your politics might be kind of warped, or you just don't really know. Good guy, bad guy type of thing. But sports, you have a pretty good idea what's going on by the time you're 12, I would hope. Yeah, you have a clue, at least. It's memorable. Yeah, but it's just kind of funny how that all turned out. Let's look at the prospects super fast before I babble too much. Obviously, it's going to take longer than it needs to. I don't want to make the show like 2 hours long. Matt Boldy just absolutely dominant in Iowa. 15 points in 12 games, multiple points, multiple times throughout this deal. Louis Belpedio finishing extremely strong after just a horrendous start to the year, and of course being banged up and such. He was stuck at 1 point forever. He's now at 7 points in 21 games. Actually, not bad. Louis Belpedio now 3 goals and 4 assists, tying Ryan O'Rourke, who's got 10 more games played for the Iowa Wild, 7 points. Ryan O'Rourke, though, nice, really nice to see him, and he signed a entry-level contract, and good for him. I mean, what a nice way to get started on your career, and playing professional hockey at age 18. Impressive. Somebody who's not been impressive is Dmitry Sokolov. I think he's in the Parise camp right now. 14 games, 4 points. Adios, amigo, man. It's sad. I was very intrigued about Dmitry Sokolov. I'm not anymore. It sucks. It sucks. It's sad to see. Kalen Nutt at 20 points in 29 games, 6 goals, 14 assists. Gabriel Dumont, he's Cal O'Reilly again, like I was saying. He's just been great. And, of course, his brother, Ryan O'Reilly, is the guy who's been murdering the Wild in multiple cases. And Connor DeWare has been just so valuable in so many cases, and Damien Giroux as well. Iowa Wild isn't the most spectacular team this year, but obviously, when it's intriguing and exciting to see guys like Damon Hunt, Ryan O'Rourke, and of course Matthew Boldy get rolling. And Hunter Jones, what an amazing recovery he's had after a horrendous start and a very unfair start to his time there. I agree with anybody that would say that. Obviously, Pavel Burnett was like saying, hey, he's had an unfair start to the year, kind of being left hanging there with hardly anybody in front of him, when he gave up 10 goals or whatever. And it really happened that way. Now at 3.47, what a nice job. And multiple shutouts on the year. Great job. 2 shutouts overall. Great recovery, Hunter Jones. You deserve a ton of credit. Tons and tons of credit. Hunter Jones, great job. Nick Sweeney also has multiple points. He scored his first goal pretty early. Actually scored his first goal most recently. Had an assist in his second game in the AHL. 5 games so far for Nick Sweeney. Awesome to see him playing professional hockey. And again, like I was saying, he's one of those good culture guys, I think, going forward that Bill Guerin's going to want on this team someday. And at least he can help build it in Iowa for now. But I think in very short order here, Nick Sweeney could be one of those guys who's won championships in the past. Not cups, but college hockey championships with an S. He's got that winning attitude. And I think he could be very good for the culture of this team going forward. Just like the Boninos and the Ian Coles. Obviously, he's not on those guys' level. We know. We get that. But I think he's the guy that will head in that direction as his career progresses. I think he's just a natural winner. I really appreciate what he could bring to the Minnesota Wild in the future. Spectacular 7th-round pick by Chuck Fletcher at the end of the day. So, very exciting. At least there's hope with Kalen Addison, guys like that. Even Louis Belpedio finishing strong, and he knows he needs to, because he could be also in the in the Sokolov camp here if things continue to drop as they have. Let's get into the rest of the postseason here quickly so I can get to fan interaction. Of course, Minnesota versus the Golden Knights. Minnesota in 7. Minnesota will beat the Golden Knights in 7 games. It'll be another one of those epic thrillers, but Minnesota is going to outlast the Golden Knights, and it will go to OT or not shootout, but OT again. And the Wild come out as winners in OT once again for a 4th time in franchise history. What do you think of that? Boston Bruins versus the Capitals? No, let's go that direction. Why the heck not? Boston Bruins versus the Capitals. Number 2 versus number 3. Boston Bruins are going to beat the Capitals in 6 games. Boston Bruins will beat the Capitals. I think they're due for a playoff run again. Capitals, I think they won their cup, and I think they're done winning cups. But we'll see. Maybe I'm way, way, way off. Pittsburgh Penguins versus the New York Islanders. Islanders were so good all year, and then they finished terribly. Pittsburgh Penguins ended up winning the division, so much for getting a really nice draft pick this year. Oh, they'll miss the playoffs. They're going to keep dropping off, they said. Yeah. Missed the playoffs, they said. Pittsburgh's done, they said. Yeah, they won the division. Yeah, great. So we're going to pick 26th or something with their pick. Just don't take another freaking Zach Phillips, okay? Please. But then again, no, I don't think this administration is going to F this one up. Probably not. I want to pick the Islanders in this series. I really do. Not just because I don't like the Penguins very much. I just don't. I hate the Penguins. But sorry, Hoppy. Sorry. I'm sorry. I love the Islanders. I love that team. Somehow I think they are going to win this series. Islanders in 7. Yeah, I'm sorry. You'd think, yeah. I think the Islanders are going to win the series and in 7 games. So they will advance. Tampa Bay Lightning versus the Panthers. Tampa Bay is going to win. It's going to be an awesome series. It'll go in 6, but it could easily go to 7. I know you can pick 7 for every series here. But Lightning ended up beating the Panthers despite being only the number 3 seed. The Hurricanes and the Predators. 5 games. Hurricanes win. They might even win it in 4, but I'll say 5. Obviously, Predators got super hot to make the playoffs. Actually, really nicely done. Predators were dead and gone a long time ago, and they somehow survived that sucker. Good job. Honestly, good job. And Hurricanes are one of the best teams in the league. Watch out for the Carolina Hurricanes. Before we get to the other divisional round here, we'll get back to that in a second. Well, the Canadian division, the Canadians, being that Isha is a Canadian, he's never mentioned he's a Canadian before, but being he's from Vancouver Island, he's a Canadian, being a Canadian and everything, Not everybody knows he's a Canadian. Okay, sorry. I just love it how he does that, but he does it a lot. And he shall love you. Soda Pod, just in case, 1 in a million chance he's listening. 1 in a million chance, pretty much, right? Maple Leafs versus the Canadiens. Somehow the Canadiens made the playoffs with only 59. I don't know. They're not going to win anywhere. And a lot of people think this is the weakest division, but, the Maple Leafs and the Oilers are really stacked in, well, at least they're very top-heavy, I'll say. Maple Leafs, I think, should be able to come out of this division. Maple Leafs, obviously, they're going to sweep the Canadiens, or we are winning 4 or 5. Let's go with a sweep, believe it or not. I'm going to pick them to sweep the Canadiens, pardon me. And then Oilers versus the Winnipeg Jets. I got a sneaky feeling, Oilers in only 5 games. What do you think of that? People will be like, really, Joey? You think they're going to just roll over the Jets? I think they're going to beat the Jets. Even though the Oilers and Toronto have just had failure after failure after failure after failure in the playoffs. I think one of these two teams is going to, I would hope one of these two teams, is going to get to the conference final. Good. It's going to be nice to see a Canadian team finally get somewhere again. And back in the old days, back when the North Stars got to the 91 finals, it was the first time in like 2 decades, they said, between 2 American teams. Isn't that crazy? Where now, it'd be the first time since, I don't even know, I think 1989 or something. No, 90, that there was no, I think the first time since 89 that there were 2 Canadian teams in the Cup Finals. I might be going crazy here, but I'm pretty sure that's the first time since 89 if there were ever 2 Canadian teams in the Stanley Cup Finals. But obviously you can't have it this year. It can't happen. So, yeah, Calgary versus the Montreal Canadiens. I think I'm right. I'm just going off the top of my head here. Okay, I'm talking too much here. The St. Louis Blues versus the Colorado Avalanche. Are you ready? Drum roll. St. Louis wins. Yep. Yeah. It's not because I don't like Colorado. It's not because I don't believe in Colorado. I'm scared to freaking death of the Blues, man. I am scared of the Blues. Blues win the series in 6 games. In only 6 games, the Blues are going to win the series. What do you think of that? They're dangerous, man. Wild would have to play the Blues next. Yep. I don't like that matchup at all, actually. I don't like the matchup at all. Just as easily, I think there's one team in this division that would probably have the best chance of beating the Blues, and that's Vegas. If Vegas gets past Minnesota, Vegas goes to the Cup final. If the Wild beat Vegas, I think St. Louis goes to the Cup final. And it's not because I'm a negative Nancy here. I don't know. The matchup sucks right now. You saw the games, as Mike Zimmer would say. You saw the games. St. Louis would beat us in 6, I think. 6 games. If it goes to 7, Minnesota wins, because that's our history. We are a Game 7 team. We win the series if it goes to 7. Otherwise, I think St. Louis in 6, which would really suck. They would then play the Toronto Maple Leafs as the seeding would go. And then on the other side, I may have to go back to the bracket here as I had it set up before. Yeah, I will have St. Louis beat the Wild, and I hate it. You think I want to say St. Louis beat the Wild? I hate it, man. But it is what it is. Oh, just let me load what I had here. That'd be great. Yep, Toronto will beat Edmonton. They will go to the conference. Boston, I actually have Boston going to the conference versus, so I have them beating the Islanders in the second round. And in this bracket, just to be optimistic, I had the Wild beating St. Louis, but I think St. Louis is going to beat the Wild, unfortunately. I have Carolina beating the Tampa Bay Lightning. What do you think of that? So dethroning the Lightning, Carolina versus the Boston Bruins in the Prince of Wales Conference, St. Louis versus Toronto. What do you think of that? That's a pretty wacky Final Four. Pretty wacky. Carolina goes to the final versus the St. Louis Blues. Carolina Hurricanes win the Stanley Cup. A bunch of jerks win the Cup. What do you think of that? Well, they're pretty good. Maybe I'm going to be dead wrong and they're going to lose in the first or second round, but I'm going to pick Carolina to win the Stanley Cup this year. If I have to pick a team, just being objective, not being a homer. As a homer, I got Minnesota beating St. Louis and going all the way and beating Carolina in the final. And I did that on the bracket. That's my homer bracket. Yep. Everything's the same except Minnesota over St. Louis for the Cup championship. Going all the way. St. Louis goes to the final and loses to Carolina. In fact, I might actually go with St. Louis winning their second Cup in 3 years. But no, I'm going to go with Carolina. I just got a feeling Carolina's going to beat them. It's going to be a beautiful series, but Carolina wins the Stanley Cup in 7 freaking games. It'll be a back and forth. St. Louis will go up 3-2. Carolina will recover, save the day. Or could Carolina go up 3-2? St. Louis beats the crap out of them, forces a 7th game, and then Carolina ends up finishing the job with a Stanley Cup title. But I suppose if it was a 7-game series, St. Louis would probably win because the road team seems to always win Game 7s nowadays, which is weird. Back in the old days, that never happened. Carolina's going to win the Cup, though, at least the way I'm standing right now. I may change it to St. Louis later on, but maybe Colorado will knock them out in the first round. Maybe, but I don't think they will. I just don't. With that said, we'll take a break. Sorry for rambling a little bit, but that's the fun of it, getting back on air again. We'll get to some fan interaction right after this. And we are back here on Brave the Wild. Time for fan interaction. Can't thank Derek Felska enough. What a great guy. Rounding up some questions. And, of course, there was interactions before that as well. So it's going to be a fairly busy fan interaction segment as we head in. But before that, we're going to get to the Vig It application. It is an application for both Android and Apple phones, of course. You got to think it's going to be on both, right? It is a free sports betting application where you're not actually betting real money. Social media for sports bettors. You can post about your picks, see what others are saying about games. Vig It Betting League's a month-long betting competition to see who the best sports bettor is over the course of a month. Free-to-play sportsbook, bet-free coins, win real prizes, betting stats. There is great information available on Vig It, on the Vig It line movement where the public is betting. So especially as we head into the postseason here, we can do some betting on these games and such, and probably even on the series. But about the game-by-game situation, like Carolina versus Carolina versus Toronto, maybe later on will be pretty cool. Or who knows what the matchups are going to be. Starting out, Montreal, Toronto right now is what I'm trying to say. Winnipeg versus... Who did they play tonight? I know there was a playoff game tonight, actually. But yeah, look at all the betting. Keep up with all the games with these teams. Winnipeg and Edmonton. And this one's actually Winnipeg, Toronto. Going on here? That was just that's just a finish. Yeah, that's a final regular season game. Pardon me, my mind is all messed up now because we bounced into all that stuff. I apologize for that. Yeah, because I was going to say they're not playing. What's going on here? I don't get it. Let's stay away from that before I get confused here. We all know who's playing who. This is just going to confuse things. Looking at some of these matchups. Let's stay away from that. But yes, do download the Vig It Sports Betting application. I'm just going to twist my mind up, but that's the last thing I want to do right now. Vig It Sports Betting application. Do join it. For the referral, when they ask for that, Paladinolive, all one word. Paladinolive. I'll put that in the show description. It would be great if you could join it, and we could do some free sports betting. This is not with real money. This is not real money wagering. It's play money. So not real money wagering. That's very important that I let you know that, and they want you to know that right away. They want me to let you know that. Otherwise, I'm not representing them correctly. At Brave the Wild is a Twitter account, and let's jump on board immediately. There was a little conversation, me and MN Johan, sorry about the Johan part. I said it wrong. I was saying, let me tell you, this Blues team scares the crap out of me. If I had no allegiance to any team in this division, I would think they are the most likely team to come out of it in the postseason. And, well, I kind of stuck with that vibe, didn't I? I picked them to go to the Cup final. I picked them to go to the Cup final. Emin Johan says, no way. Not a bad team, but not as complete of a team as when they won 2 years ago. Their D is not as good. I agree, but for some reason, they're just scaring me. So, I agree. I understand. I should have clicked like on your... I apologize. I didn't even click like. I probably didn't see the tweet right away. I just saw all the likes. I understand if you disagree. We'll see. We'll see. St. Louis scares the crap out of me. They do. I hope I'm wrong. I don't really like the Blues very much. I bet a lot of people would rather see Colorado, Vegas, or Minnesota, right? Derek Felska doing these awesome previews. Him and his wife, Teresa Ferry's doing just an amazing job. Crease and assist. Isha Jerome and again, this is the guy I was teasing about, talking about being Canadian. We had a brief conversation about Star Wars for a minute there. He was saying he grew up on the trilogy of Indiana Jones, Back to the Future. He loved them all. We were talking about 80s movies. He said, P.S. I don't hate episode 1. See, basically we were talking about how the best Star Wars movies were the original trilogy. That was kind of what started the conversation, and yeah, I agree 1,000,000%. He was saying he doesn't hate episode 1, like the masses, the Darth Maul fight and pod racing scenes made that movie legit. I agree with that part. I didn't like how kiddie it was, like how Anakin was just a little boy. I don't know, I thought it was kind of lame, but the rest of the movie actually was decent. I agree with that. He was saying the rest that followed are absolute trash and a disgrace to the 70s and 80s masterpieces. For some reason, I kind of liked 2 and 3, but anything after that I didn't like at all. He just said, oof, you should rewatch them then. Episode 1 had so much better of a classic Star Wars vibe and way better just scenes and script. Episode 2 had so many plot holes it made me puke. And 3, well, I thought it was bad at age 11, so disappointed, haha. So I understand that. Now we'll keep going back to hockey again. But it's cool, though, to get into Star Wars for a second there. Teresa Ferries was saying you shouldn't be hurting the fragile feelings of Raskaters. Yep, that's where he was playing so well in the overtime period, and he ended up scoring the game-winning goal. That was pretty cool. A few games. Yep, that was against the Anaheim Ducks. The 4-3. I can't believe we even went to OT versus the Ducks, but hey, that was a great play by Rask. Occasionally, he can be very clutch. She was saying there's simply not enough high-fructose corn syrup available to sweeten that haterade. To soften the truth. I'm not a huge fan of high fructose corn syrup, by the way. I'm sure a lot of you aren't. It's let's just say it's not the hell. Yeah, there's a lot of reasons to not like it. I'll leave that alone. Peter A says, "Rasking in the glory." And yes, I know that Bill Guerin and Dean Evison love Victor Rask as well. And Judd Zolgad, basically, as he said many times, I don't understand it. I don't either. But I do see he can be clutch at times. I appreciate that. But generally speaking, yeah, you'd think we can do better, but I guess not. Minnesota Rube, here we go. Continuing on the Victor Rask conversation. Says, what is the truth about Victor Rask? And I was saying, how did I word it? Let's see. I know I responded. There it is. Where is it? I did respond. Why is it not there? It must be on the next one. I'm going to put it back. Hopefully this doesn't mess everything up. How did I say it? There it is. The truth about Victor Rask is he's all over the place. Sometimes he can be clutch, but he sure as heck is limited in skating and hockey, I hear at times. Minnesota Rube responds with, the truth is he's mostly not very good and can play okay on occasion. Yep, well said. I don't disagree with that. That's well said. I think we both kind of agreed a bit there. And Shannon R. comes up with a gem, an absolute gem. It comes from Russo Filter. Puck Rocker was responding to Russo Filter at Puck Rocker. The response is, Victor Rask is to hockey what Taco Bell is to Mexican food. It's not great, but in a pinch it gets the job done. And then Black Space Gaming, here he is, Sebastian Balls says, or Barton, says he's not good enough. He's not good enough, often enough to be on this team. I understand that. I was saying something about how, and as long as we're on the food vibe, it's to me it's like Olive Garden to Italian food. It's just so mediocre. Ugh, it's so mediocre. It gets the job done sometimes, but there's some restaurants I really miss. Shannon was saying, I was telling her that was an absolute gem, and she says I found it and had to share it. Brian Herrera, there he is. Awesome guy. Awesome guy. I love what he had to say here. I just really appreciate it. He said, when's the next Brave the Wild podcast? Some of us are going through withdrawal, man. This was last weekend. Oh, man, I was telling him I'm going to do a playoff preview next weekend, and, well, here it is, Brian. I hope it's been good, and it's going to be longer than an hour, I'm sure, as you could tell. He was hoping for a 2-hour episode. Brian, you're awesome. I mean, I really appreciate that. I was telling Shannon that's a really good way to sum it up. Nicely done. And she was saying, I found it and had to share it. And yeah, I'm glad you did. Minnesota Rube was saying, so we're kind of going back and forth on some of the same back and forth on the similar topics here. Minnesota Rube says he's played quite well, that being Rask, in his fourth line role the second half of the year. Very valuable. I don't disagree with that. Brian Herrera. Well, let's go to Shannon really quick. She says, I totally agree on the Olive Garden thing. Yep. It's so mediocre. Brian Herrera says, I guess I can wait. I'll be okay with Locked On Wild daily episodes until you drop a podcast, and Judd Zolgad and his parrot until you drop your in-depth and fan appreciation podcast. Sorry for stumbling all over you there. I really appreciate that, Brian. That's I'm honored with you putting me with Zolgad and even Locked On Wild. It's just really cool. Thank you for that. He was saying at this point I'm hoping for a 2-hour pod. Then I know you can get into the details, and sometimes I ramble too much too. But hopefully, the details are good. Black Space Gaming says OG is mediocre. That being Olive Garden. Which is why I love the $8 lunch prices. Yep, I understand that too. Yep, that was awesome for you to say that. Let's see if there's and then we get into some of the lightning round and such. It's going to come up here eventually when things get started up. Black Space Gaming against Sebastian says, if Brave the Wild could have handcrafted a perfect day weather-wise, it would be today, May the 12th. Wow. And the last couple of days, today on the 14th got a bit more cloudy and dark at times. It's still a decent day. Man, the 12th and 13th, though, holy mother. I mean, those are days I would take back and wish we could keep 365. I was talking something about the goaltending situation. Brian Herrera, and it got a response from him. I said, I still can't believe we got shut out by a goalie with a 3.5 goals against average. Yikes. That was the 4-0 loss to St. Louis there, their backup goalie, Husso. He says, Brian Herrera says, yes, and any goalie can get hot at any time, like tonight. I'm more concerned with Talbot's 3+ goals given up in his last 5 or so starts, and I'm concerned about that too, going against the Golden Knights. It's not going to be easy. If he struggles the way he has, we're going to lose. We're going to lose, as they would say on the Sin Bin. We're going to lose, if this happens or that happens. Kind of like how the Vegas Golden Knights just suddenly stopped scoring. Their consistency just fell off the face of the planet when they got to the West Finals last year after a great Game 1 win. We continue the conversation about goaltenders. Brian Herrera says, I was saying, he's not been good. This is being Cam Talbot. Yeah, he's not been good. I don't understand why they refuse to play Kakinen. It's the same bullcrap we kept doing with Dubnik in the past. I definitely understand any goalie can get hot anytime. It just drives me nuts. And Brian Herrera says, depending on how good Capo plays tonight, might just affect our playoff starter. I've been hearing a ton of frustration with overplaying Talbot and sitting Capo on. I've been one of the guys basically tooting that one. I hope the Wild can break their long history of overplaying one goalie. And the sad part is it's too late. It's too late because they finally put him in the final game of the season and he gave up 7 goals. They should have got him in there more often. It was going to be Cam Talbot in the playoffs. It's just so the way it was going to be. You could see how it was heading. The writing was on the wall going back into March, most likely, at the very least. And then Kakinen just continue being crazy. Derek Felska says, I doubt it about, we're deciding the new starter here, the starter in the playoffs. In Vegas, it kind of was that way. Back and forth. But now with Minnesota, it's going to be Cam Talbot's job right now. As Derek Felska, pardon me, Freeson assists says Capo. He says, I doubt it. Capo could have had a shutout today, and Cam Talbot is still going to be the starter in the first Minnesota Wild playoff game. Yep. That's just how it is. Brian Herrera says, shitty, but you're right about that. Yeah. Yep. So, I think this is where we get to those, but still, either way, hearing from Brian, that was awesome. What was I saying here? I think I was talking about St. Louis again. Wild Kirill Fran. Yep, I was saying, looks like it's going to be Vegas-born after all. Prepare for a 6 or 7 game epic battle to the finish. And I was saying it, though, but hoping we're going to win. Wild Kirill Fran at Wild Kirill Fan says, I'd rather that we play Vegas over Colorado because we won 5 out of 8 games against the Vegas Golden Knights this year. So this is my reaction. It's celebrating with a cigar and some beer there. It's obviously not the exact person, but yeah, interesting though. And I was saying the team I'm most scared of is the Blues, if I remember correctly. I was saying I certainly don't disagree with that. St. Louis is the team I'm most scared of, believe it or not. Vegas will be a lot of fun. Well, Gorilla Friend says, me too. We've been horrible against the Blues this year. Yes, we have. That's why I don't think we'd actually beat them. Okay, and then I was saying, this was last night again. All this was last night. I believe whoever comes out of the Honda West Division will ultimately get to the Cup Final, including St. Louis. Yep. There isn't a single team out of the 4 in the postseason in this division that isn't extremely dangerous. Amen Johan says, I absolutely agree. Yep. So it looks like he may have kind of... He may be... so maybe he's turned a little bit on St. Louis in a positive direction. Because, yeah, St. Louis to me is a legitimate Cup contender. And that might sound crazy at 63 points, but they are. They are. You know, they're not as good as they were when they won the Cup. That was a great team. They were very well put together. They terribly underachieved. And then all of a sudden, the coaching change, the little culture change, and it's crazy what can happen. A little culture change in Minnesota, it's crazy what could happen too. Thank you very much, Bill Karen. We're trying to continue here without coughing. Derek Felska says, here we go. I finally caught up now. I'm surprised how much interaction there was even before I got to this. Derek's probably like, holy cow. I bet that's what he's thinking right now. At Crease and Assist, and thank you so much. I love that you do this. I appreciate it so much. He was saying, got a Minnesota Wild question on your mind. Now that the Wild are in the playoffs and will face Vegas in the first round, ask Brave the Wild. Just tag your questions, hashtag BTWMN, and fire away. Please retweet Jay Bushy, Tom Hayen, Ty Sandstrom, Brian Herrera, Davey, Jay, Jody Halvey, and Deist. That is, of course, Justin Bakke. Yep, very cool. Thank you guys so much. Derek Felska says, how many games do you think Zach Parise will play this first round playoff series, or will he only be a black case? I think he'll only be a black case. I think Zach Parise doesn't play in this series, barring injury. There's a chance, okay, I'll say there's a chance he squeaks in 1 or 2. Because they might switch the lineups around. Maybe Parise ends up being a big surprise. And what would be the ultimate story is here I go back to rambling again, because my mind likes to wander. As you probably noticed that, Derek. My mind likes to wander because my imagination is big. It's really big. I could probably write a book easily without... The book would probably be too long some days. Or some days, at least. That's some of my books would probably be too long because of that. Imagine the ultimate story. The Wild get to the Cup Final. The Wild are winning in Game 6 or Game 7 with like a minute left. Parise's obviously active. He's been playing in the game. And there he is on the bench, kind of like Alex Ovechkin was a couple of years back versus Vegas. In this case, for Parise, instead of hiding everything, because Ovechkin was just praying to God nothing crazy would happen, and the Knights tie it up in the empty net situation. But Parise is sitting there with tears streaming down his cheeks, tears of joy, like all of this time, all these years, all we've been through. And we're going to win the Stanley Cup. And it's going to end this way in Minnesota. His last game as the Minnesota Wild players with the Stanley Cup championship. Wouldn't that be the most beautiful thing ever? That's indeed, if this is the end of Zach Parise. A lot of local media does believe so. And I agree. I can see the writing on the wall. But what an unbelievable story it would be if, say, Zach Parise just happened to be active in that game. And the Wild win the Stanley Cup this year. Wouldn't that be beautiful? But in this series, I will say 1 or 2 games. I'm going to go out on a limb and say 2 games. Zach Parise will play in 2 games in this playoff series if you want a round number. Or, okay, if you want me a gun to my head. Continuing, before I babble too much. Derek says, which Wild player do you think could be the team's hero in the opening round, and which player concerns you the most going into the playoffs? I hate to say this about the concern. We'll start with that first. It's Talbot. Yep, it's Cam Talbot. And he was a strength all season. Cabo Kakkonen was a strength for the longest time before he hit a wall for some reason. And then all of a sudden he never played him again. That was Colorado, if I remember. That was a pretty big wall. Colorado or St. Louis, either one of them beat the crap out of the Wild, and Kakkonen and Talbot. Cam Talbot concerns me the most. The team's hero is most likely to be Kaprizov, I got to think, but in this series, I think it's going to be Kevin Fiala. I think Kevin Fiala is going to have an incredible first round. I think he's going to get at least 4 goals. What do you think of that? At least 4 goals in this series. And just might be the guy that scores the game winner in OT to send the Wild to round 2 to play the frickin' Blues. And then if we get past them, we will go to the Cup final. Yep, the Wild's confidence will be so high, we'll be rolling, and the momentum will be, the wheels will be turning. There'll be so much momentum, this and that. The most likely guy to be a hero is Kaprizov, but I'm going to pick the opening round. It's going to be Fiala is going to be the hero. And the most likely guy to concern me is Cam Talbot. Yeah, but the way he's been, it's not been good. Overplayed a bit. Here we go. Derek continues, says, do you think the Iowa Wild have what it takes to win their divisional playoff in the AHL Central and be not quite Calder Cup, but better than nothing champions? Sure. With the talent there, and if Boldy's still there and all that, sure. I think they can at least do something in the postseason, at least win one round there. Do something. Obviously, not go all the way or anything. I don't think they're good enough to go all the way. But there's pieces. I mean, the beginning of the year was terrible, but Hunter Jones has really settled in. He is a professional goaltender. He's a professional goaltender. He was in way over his head, but he also had not a lot of help in front of him, and that hurt him in such a big way in the early stage of the season. It was a nasty start for the Iowa Wild. I got to think a lot of minor league teams really, AHL, when I say minor league teams, really felt some serious frustration. Some luckier ones, more fortunate ones got off to a stronger start, I suppose, where they didn't have too much of that crap going on. The Wild are right in the middle of a COVID outbreak, if we can call it that. The guys got sick from stuff. That's what happened, but luckily all was well there. We'll continue. Derek again says, as we'll jump in all over the place. Usually, we'll get kind of all of his questions at once and jump into the next person. Derek says, which of the many Minnesota Wild players who are on expiring deals need a big playoff performance the most if they wish to be tendered an offer by the Wild this offseason? Tendered an offer, huh? Well, good thing I pulled up the salaries. I had that already ready, surprisingly, in the background. Marcus Johansson needs a huge playoff series, I think. I think Nick Bonino, I think they want him back. And I don't think he's going to demand $4.1 million, even though he really finished strong during the course of the regular season. What an awesome finish by this guy. Nick Bonino, I think the keys to the castle are his. Okay, not the keys to the vault, but the keys to the castle, as they might say in certain podcasts out there. Wink, wink. I think they want Nick Bonino back in a big way, probably even more than Ian Cole now. I love Ian Cole. I'd love to have him back, and especially he is Carson Soucy insurance. That's what I was thinking about as well. Now he won't have to play out of position at the very least, even though the combination of Cole and Soucy has been so good. But Cole could help nurture a guy like a Kalen Addison going into next season, quite possibly, because, well, there's going to be an opening on that right spot for sure. Unfortunately, it'd be third pairing depending on what happens with Dumba. But Ian Cole, I think he's at very least Carson Soucy insurance if Soucy gets expansion drafted by the Seattle Seahawks. No, the Seattle Kraken, pardon me. Why did I call them the Seahawks? Because I don't know. But I think odds are that Cole stays, especially if the Kraken wind up with Soucy. But it could go to anybody. It could be Greenway. Who knows? But I think the guy that really needs the fabulous postseason to get a chance to stay in Minnesota is going to be Marcus Johansson. I don't think he'd get a long-term contract anyway, though. That's the thing. He'd be looking at 1 or 2 years maximum. It is what it is. Bukestad, hey, if he has a spectacular postseason, that's great. I think his chances of returning are slim. It's nothing against him. He's just limited. I don't hate him. People are wondering, what's with all the Bukestad hate? I heard something about that on Wild Fan Line, on KFan. Well, I don't hate him, but I don't think he's somebody that I don't think he's somebody you're clamoring for. Put it this way, Bonino or Bukestad? Anyone? And you in the back. Yes, I agree, Bonino. So, I think so. That's not hate. It's Bonino's a winner. Bukestad, he's good, he's solid, but there's just a little extra with Bonino, in my opinion. Mike, here we go. Welcome aboard, Mike. Welcome aboard back to the show. Great to hear from him again. He says, now that the Blues made us look defenseless, do you put part of the blame on Coach Evason for the defensive scheme? A little bit, and I put part of the blame on the fact that they overplayed Talbot. The defensive team didn't look good, though, either. No, I mean, I don't know what the heck. St. Louis just knows what they're doing, don't they? And they're picking up at the right time. I mean, if you're going to get hot, now's the time to do it. So, yep, good question there, Mike. I hope that was a decent answer, not too crappy. I hope I didn't give you a crappy answer there. Jay Bushy says, any concern with the way both goalies play as the season ended? Yes, a lot. A lot of concern. Going into this series, I think it's terrifying, honestly. The good news is we find a way, somehow, some way, to score against Fleury and Leonard, especially Leonard. We just really beat the crap out of Leonard this year. And Leonard's been great all year. Fleury's been great all year. I mean, they could easily win the Goalie of the Year award from Niza. So, I don't know. I don't know. I'm very concerned going into this series with the goaltending situation. But luckily, again, for some reason, we seem to find a way with their goalies as well. Hopefully, we end up surviving, and Talbot can get his sharpness back. I just wish so much that Kakinen was in goal more often during the course of April down the stretch. I just pray to God it isn't another situation where we have a goalie that's knocked out again and we end up losing. Why isn't this moving? Okay, I know there's some more coming in. Yeah, see what happened was they ended up being on the retweets. Because I know... Yeah, here we go. Here's the lightning round from Tom Hayen. Welcome back, Tom Hayen. It's been a long, long hiatus. Yep, he lost his mother not too long ago, and all respect in the world, Tom. All respect in the world, and so great to have you back, and condolences and everything. And I understand that you just, you didn't want to, didn't have the lightning round in you, and I understand. But it's so awesome to have you back. So awesome to have you back. He says, "What's the price point the Minnesota Wild should live with regarding Jules Eriksson, considering that Kaprizov, Calder, and Fiala both have to get paid, and this team still needs a legitimate number one center?" Ooh, boy. That's a tough one, ain't it? That's a tough question. What is the price point for Jules Eriksson? It's certainly going to be more than what he made. Obviously, the 1.487. Oh, man. Probably, should I say this? Probably what Victor Rask is making, about $4 million. Yeah. I don't know how many years you're going to want to sign him, but I think it could be about $4 million because he's just so... I wouldn't be surprised if Bill Guerin tries to get him lower into the threes. 3.5, 3.75, 3.25, 33, 33, 174. Okay, I'm just kidding. That's an old phone number after the salon years ago, my parents' salon. I think he'll be making more than Foligno because of his position, and obviously he provides more offense. He's a 20-goal kind of guy now. Oh, man. 3 to 4 range. 3 to 4 range, 3 to 5 years. He'll probably want a 5-year deal. He'll want some stability. He'll want term, is what I'm trying to say. Heck, we gave Ryan Hartman a 3-year extension for only 1.7. What a frickin' deal. Jules going to get about 4, I think. Approximately 4 a year. Maybe 3.75. Hopefully they can settle into less than 4. I really hope so. And probably up to 5 years, because I got to think he's going to want term. And I don't blame him there. It's going to be a busy offseason. Good thing we don't have to sign Nico Sturm until next year. Whew, thank God for that. Which again spells more likelihood that I think guys like Johansson are gone, because you're going to want to use that money for something else. You certainly ain't giving him $4.5. Bonino's going to get a price reduced to hopefully maybe 1 year, $2 million, or 2 years, $4 million, but I think 1 year for Bonino. $2 million is just my guess. Talk about buying out Parisi, which that'd be complicated, but it is what it is. It could be a possibility. Greenway's still not getting paid too much, so we don't have to pay him right away. Yeah. Again, obviously some of that money, some of that Johansson money that's going to come off the books. That's where I think he ain't coming back without a spectacular postseason, because we're going to need that money for Jules Eriksson, Kevin Fiala, Kirill Kaprizov. Oh my goodness. Oh boy. Good thing we don't have an immediate free agent, for defense, except for Ian Cole, and we'll see. Ian Cole's a valuable guy. We'll have to wait and see. But I think Jules in that 4 range. Sorry for babbling so long there again. I just keep doing that, but it was an awesome question. Next one from Tom Hand. Welcome back. Says, when the Minnesota Wild beats the Silver Bishops. Yep, the Silver Knights are there. The Henderson Silver Knights, you mean, right? Okay, I'm just kidding. That's their minor league affiliate, of course. When the Wild beat the Silver Bishops in round 1, will the national media do the easy and expected thing and write this up as the greatest upset in the history of the sport? I hope not. That would be mean, wouldn't it? Wouldn't that be mean? I hope not. Oh, that'd be kind of dorky of them. They better not. Looks like there was a response to Tom Hand. Oh, Kemper Cougar says, they better pay up on Joel Eriksson Ek. He's the only player I completely trust on the ice. That kid works hard. He does, doesn't he? He does, and yeah, they're gonna pay him. They're gonna pay him $3.75 to $4 million for 5 years. That's my guess. It's gonna be a long-term contract for a reasonable amount. But yeah, I mean, if they give him $5 million, they're overpaying, I think, until the scoring goes up. Maybe they'll give him a bridge deal to say, hey, if you're really a 20 to 25 guy, maybe we'll give you a 2 or 3 year bridge contract, kind of like we did with Granlund a few years back, many years ago now, where it's like maybe 3 years, 3 years, 3 million, 3.5 or something per, and go from there. Or maybe it'd be like a 2 year bridge contract or something. But my guess is he's going to get the 5 year, $4 million per is my guess. Tom Hand said, next one says, the Tom Hand lightning round continues. Love the lightning round. I really love it, and I missed it so much. And good timing as we head into the postseason. A very epic fan interaction tonight, and thank you so much, Derek. And thank you so much to others out there that interacted even before that, too. I always appreciate that. Tom Hand says, sometimes I just need to post more, then I'll get interaction that way as well, in case it's a quieter reaction. Tom Hagen says, some are posting that last night was the final time Zach Parise puts on a Minnesota Wild sweater. Not buying it, but what are your thoughts? I think he will play some playoff games. And I can understand why you wouldn't buy it, because it's like you'll believe it when you see it with his contract, that type of thing. But the vibe from within the organization is that they're ready to move on. And Bill Guerin's the kind of guy, as he said on Dan Barrero and other podcasts and such. Well, not podcasts, or like other shows. Well, yeah, like a podcast like Straight from the Source and stuff. He's not screwing around. And that's why I do think Zach Parise, there's a really good chance that Zach Parise, after this postseason, regardless of what happens, I think Zach Parise is not returning next year. Somehow, some way, he will not be back with the Minnesota Wild. If it's some kind of a dead contract, some kind of a buyout, some kind of dead contract trade, I don't think Zach Parise returns to the Wild next year. So that's actually my thoughts. I'm kind of reading the tea leaves as well. It's very unlikely he's going to come back, and if he does, he'll just be kind of like an inactive player most of the year. We'll see. But his limit, he is so limited now, and it's sad to see, because, geez, you see Zach Parise, you see his face, you see his number, you think, my God, that's one of the best players on the team, one of the 2 or 3, like he's the star, the biggest name, and then it's like, no, he's not. It's weird. Tom Hand, final lightning bolt of the lightning round, says, unless there are more that I'm missing, how much actual panic should the Wild fan base be feeling after the team's final 2 efforts, quote-unquote, to close the regular season? It shouldn't be too panicked, especially last night, because it was kind of like, it was one of those AAA kind of games, like the 4th game of the preseason or the final game of the regular season, when you sit a chunk of players. I don't feel too worried about it, but the goaltending situation is scary. It is scary. That's where I'm not panicking, but I'm worried. Scale of 1 to 10, 10 being extremely worried, 1 being not worried at all about the goaltending situation. It's a 6, buddy. It's a 6. Yeah, I am noticeably concerned about the Minnesota Wild's goaltending situation. As for the rest of the team, I hope St. Louis didn't uncover something. I hope they didn't, and this is how you beat the Wild, basically. Sometimes it happens. This is how you neutralize the Wild, this and that. It wasn't a good couple of games. It really wasn't. So, very frustrating. There might be some more in here, because I actually didn't even do the hashtag yet. I actually used just the the mention bit here. And the computer is not responding the way I want it to. I might end up having to switch my venue here very soon, pardon me. Now it's starting to work very gradually. I could just click on it and then go from there. And you get the spinning wheel crap. Okay, there you go. There's Tom Hands there. And then there's Flo from Progressive. That's interesting. Of course, yeah. Tom Hands there. Brian Herrera. Here we go. What would you give up to get Eichel? I think you know how I feel about that at this moment. Yeah, I think I'm on Bill Guerin. I think I'm reading the way Bill Guerin was saying it. He's not in a huge rush. He wants to build through the draft and such. That way you don't spend $1 trillion on like a huge contract, and you give up a ton of draft picks and your prospects. You kind of clear out your farm for the guy. Dumbo would be in the deal for sure to free up space for. Obviously, our two nice young prospects there on the right side, defensively. I'm terrified to give up Fiala, Rossi, or Boldy. I'm terrified to give them up. But talk is they'd want both, or they'd want two of the three, and potentially multiple picks. I think I'm out. I just think I'm out. I might sound crazy. You might think like, why would you say that, Joey? That's a franchise center. I think I'm out. It's if you're going to get Jack Eichel, you just, unfortunately, guys like that, you probably have to get them through the draft. Or just, you have so many prospects, and it's time to win immediately, and he's the perfect fit. He'd be a great fit for the Wild. It's just so expensive. It scares the crap out of me. That's the thing. I just think I'm out. I'm terrified to do it. I might be just a jackass for saying that, but I'm terrified to do it, honestly. Sorry if I'm talking so quiet here. Maybe try not to make too much noise because it's late here, and obviously in Golden Valley, Minnesota right now. I think that was everything. I just want to make absolute sure. I'm literally scrolling as I'm talking here, looking to wrap up the show, if there aren't any more. But those of you that commented, thank you so much. Yeah, Mike, always love when Mike talks. Mike tweets as well, and he has a few times. Mokov 65. Awesome. I'm not following you? Shame on me. What's up with that? I apologize if not. I wasn't. That's dorky of me. I don't know if he's following either, but let's follow each other. Let's follow each other and keep talking wild, huh? I thought I was following him. Shame on me. Maybe he got mad and unfollowed. I don't know. I'm just kidding. I think I got to all these, though. Again, crease and assists. Wonderful, wonderful article from Derek Felska. That's where he writes his blogs. He often writes the game reviews. His wife, Teresa Ferries, writes the game previews, but also Derek can write all kinds of things regarding the Minnesota Wild, and even wrote an article about a certain podcast host of Brave the Wild. What an awesome guy. I just really appreciate that. He's obviously been a guest on the show a couple of times now, and just knows his hockey up and down. He does such a spectacular job. Great writer. Appreciate him so much for everything he does and brings to the game of hockey, and appreciate all of you that include yourself on the show. It is... you are so welcome. I mean, the red carpet is rolled out for you. The keys to the castle are yours. All that good stuff. You're so welcome on this show. At bare minimum in fan interaction. It is so nice to hear from you guys that interact with this show. It is so wonderful. Really appreciate all of it. I wish the Wild could get Eichel. I do, but it's going to cost a lot. It's probably going to cost too much. That's where I'm terrified. But if we can somehow get out of it with only giving up one of those big three, of Rossi is not on the table. Let's put it at that. Let's put it like that. I'm scared to trade Boldy, but maybe he's the most likely one, I guess. I'm scared to trade Fiala too. He's a proven quantity now. Fiala's not the lottery ticket I called him 2 years ago, and I thought he was like a lottery ticket. Like, yeah, he just might end up becoming a really good player, like Fenton was saying, but he hasn't yet. Yep, that was a lottery ticket that won. Fiala is a proven quantity. I think he's going to be great. He's going to continue to be great for this franchise. Eichel is probably a better overall player, but that's, again, you don't want to give up everything to get him. That's what I'm scared of. And I think Guerin might be worried about that too. And as Buffalo's just ready to just move, part ways with with him. If it's just done by a first-round pick, I'd do that. Oh, yeah. But so would the rest of the planet, probably, in that case. They're probably not going to be just satisfied with that. Maybe throw in Povanov. Get a center back and watch him become the best center in the league in a couple of years at Buffalo. Just because it'd be the most Minnesota thing ever. Like Rossi goes to Buffalo. He's the next Steve Yzerman. Yeah. Okay, so let's wrap up the show. I'm talking way too much now, but I enjoyed it, and I miss being behind the mic doing the show. It's been about 3 weeks, so kind of catching up for lost time. That's why I'm rambling like an old man here at 12:05 a.m., and that's the clock I'm looking at right now. Final thoughts here are, again, not final thoughts, but I want to give out the contact details. At Brave the Wild is the Twitter account. Facebook.com/BraveTheWild.Minnesota is the Facebook page. MNW Prospects at MNW Prospects is the Twitter account. Definitely give that a follow. It's extremely popular. And the Facebook page, Facebook.com/MNW followers. I'm also very proud to be a part of God Puck Wild, though I haven't written in forever. I need to write about it again. Maybe talking about the Wild shouldn't give up the farm or something like that. That's what I'm kind of thinking right now in a trade. But if we can make a trade that makes sense, then okay. Trades are hard to do. You don't want to kill yourself. That's the one thing. So with that, again, major shout-outs to Minnesota Wild Global, Minnesota Wild Nation. Thank you. Both of your web pages are so fantastic on Facebook. You guys are awesome. Patrick Turner, Scott Cavendish, Chad Walski, Chance Kostick, David Kostick, Kathy Main, David Abraham, Michael Fick. There's so many awesome people on there. Jamie's also on there. And appreciate all of you on Twitter that have been so great as well. Pardon me. MNW Prospects, you got Pavel Bennett, who runs it. He's the main guy, of course. Justin Bakke, Brandon Quast, awesome guys. Brandon Quast writes. Justin Bakke is a co-host on the Fog Orange podcast. They all do such a great job. Justin Bakke obviously loves the prospects. I mean, we all do on MNW Prospects, because there was always like, who's the guy that's going to save the franchise? Who's it going to be? And we kept following Kaprizov, and he finally came, and here he is, and he's saving the franchise. But who are the other guys that are going to help him save the franchise and turn this into a championship contender for the next 10 plus years and keep us there? And then guys after that, the Rossis, the Boldies, and guys later and later on in the future that we don't know yet. It's going to be exciting, and that's why we have that page. We just love doing it so much. Unfortunately, my coverage has not been. I've not been active on the page this year because the two leagues that I was covering, the Q as they call it, the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League and the BCHL, were inactive this year. But we'll be back to work in the fall. I got to think they better be. They better be back rolling again, since we're opening up all over the country. And Canada, let's go! Come on, Canada, open up a little bit here. With that said, again, please give a positive rating on iTunes, Stitcher, or Audible. Those are the three avenues you can give positive ratings for this podcast if you'd like to. If you would, I'd really appreciate it. I'll give you a big thank you on the air. I appreciate so much when you do that, and the kind words that Brian Herrera gave about the show on Twitter. Just thank you. It's been nice being able to get to know you a bit on Twitter, and really appreciate it. Really appreciate the kind thoughts. With that said, hope you have a wonderful couple of days. Hope you have a wonderful weekend, and we have a wonderful series against the Vegas Golden Knights. Wild win in 7. With that said, take care. Go Wild.